Part 33. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 321. Our war with the Blackwing civilization lasted for millions of years. In the face of this kind of existence, these millions of years seemed to be meaningless. Jane raised her hand, looked at her hand, and fell into deep thought. For a moment, she felt an unprecedented sense of powerlessness. In the eyes of the winged civilization, the black-winged civilization is its enemy and must be pulled out and destroyed. But after so many years, the two civilizations have experienced wars, but neither one can do anything to the other. At this moment, the feather-wing civilization, as the master of the fairy galaxy, regards the black-wing civilization as its biggest opponent. But the Blackwing civilization disappeared in an instant in front of that galaxy behemoth. Just like an ant, it was easily crushed to death. So simple, so easy. The winged civilization was originally the ruler of this galaxy. As the queen of this civilization, Jane was confident and proud. However, at this moment, she seemed to see a huge creature. The huge creature raised its foot and stepped on her. And she was like an ant, he could trample her to death at will. Her confidence and pride became worthless in front of that kind of terrifying civilization. What you said is correct. Jane looked at Ning and said, then, why does that civilization want to destroy the Blackwing civilization? Does he want to help us? Jane's hands trembled slightly. It was fear and uneasiness. If that civilization simply wants to be destroyed, and now that it has destroyed the Blackwing civilization, will the next one be the winged civilization? Ning said, actually, the teacher has been studying the existence of that life when he was alive. Later, he handed over the research of this thing to me. According to the teacher's records, that life was originally a black hole. It swallowed up the black hole at the center of the Milky Way and replaced it. Later, it swallowed up the entire Milky Way. Hearing this, Jane's pupils condensed slightly. You mean, the mass extinction event of celestial bodies in the Milky Way? Jane was still young when the Milky Way became extinct. At that time, she was just an ordinary warrior and had not yet become a queen. At that time, the mass extinction of celestial bodies in the Milky Way was already known to everyone. Ning said, yes, the cause of that celestial mass extinction event has been investigated, but the former queen thought that announcing it would cause unrest, so she did not make it public. The mass extinction event of celestial bodies and the subsequent great recovery event of celestial bodies were all caused by that life. Jane frowned. No wonder. The Milky Way has experienced a celestial mass extinction and a celestial recovery event in these millions of years. And all of this can be observed by advanced civilizations in the Andromeda Galaxy. The mass extinction of celestial bodies means that all celestial bodies disappear in an incomprehensible form and are swallowed up by the central black hole. The great celestial body resurgence event is when the central black hole spits out energy again and reforms galaxies at an extremely fast speed. This process is the great celestial body resurgence. This has always been a mystery. Now Jane finally understands. It turns out that there is a super terrifying civilization force. Ning said, based on the records left by the teacher and my research up to this point, I can conclude that life in this galaxy is currently devouring the Andromeda Galaxy, and the devouring process is a process that is biased toward fusion. The fusion will not cause damage to our galaxy. Sex. For that kind of civilization, our existence is just like an inconspicuous weed on the roadside. When an intelligent life sees weeds on the roadside, it will have two choices, one is to destroy it, the other is to ignore it. This choice is random, because whether it is destruction or ignorance, it is not important to itself. Of course, destroying it will consume a certain amount of time, but ignoring it will not consume time, so there is a high probability that it will choose to ignore it. The probability that you will choose to destroy a weed on the roadside is very low unless. After hearing this analysis, Jane looked at Ning. Unless, what? Ning looked at Jane and said, unless it's boring now that it has nothing to do, so it randomly pulls out a weed to kill time. Jane was stunned for a moment, then, we. Looking at Jane's expression, she showed a smile and said, when you are bored, you will indeed pull out a weed, but the probability of this is extremely small. I can only say that Blackwing civilization has won the lottery. I think you won't win easily, you can rest assured. Jane looked at Ning's expression. She knows. Not necessarily. Because its behavior is random. Maybe, after it was idle and had nothing to do, it pulled out the weeds of the Blackwing civilization, it was idle again, and coincidentally wanted to pull out the feathered civilization? Jane was a little uneasy, but there was nothing she could do to change this uneasiness. That kind of existence is not something she can change. Just like Ning said, in the eyes of that kind of existence, she, the so-called master of the fairy galaxy, is just a weed. Weeds cannot resist the uprooting of that presence. Jane felt an unprecedented sense of powerlessness. Next to her was a sharp silver weapon that could cut everything, a sharp silver sword. But this sword cannot deal with that terrifying existence no matter what. Small. Jane felt her own insignificance. Jane adjusted her mood. She slowly stood up, picked up the sword, looked at Han who was listening in a daze, and said, let's go. When Han heard this, she was stunned for a moment and looked at Jane, Queen, she didn't know what the Queen was going to do. The Queen wore a red cape and said, didn't the metal civilization send a request for help? Now that the Blackwing civilization has been destroyed, we have no worries and can help the metal civilization fight against the Zerg civilization. At this point, she looked at Ning and said, since you are here, I'll leave the wing star to you. Ning was stunned, she smiled bitterly, I just came out, and you asked me to look after the house. Jian smiled, who else can I trust besides you? Looking at the trust in Jian's eyes, Ning smiled at Jian and said, for what you said, I will guard this house. Yes. Jian patted Ning's shoulder, flapped her wings, and flew out of the gate. Han flew away with Jian. Ning stood in front of the gate, looking at the two figures. Her eyes were shining. Regardless of whether the people on the roadside will pull out the weed called winged civilization because of temporary boredom, the weeds still have to continue to live, continue to absorb nutrients from the sun and soil, and continue to survive. Death may come at any time, but you can't just do nothing and kill yourself just because death is coming. Life goes on, and things that should be done still have to be done. Jane flew towards the space-time gate in front of her, her eyes shining. Winged civilization may no longer be the master of this fusion galaxy in the future, but it is still now. Since it is now, the current winged civilization must do what the master should do. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 322. The metal civilization is located in the metal star. The metal star is an artificial planet made entirely of metal. In this metal star lives a group of robots with an average height of 5 meters. At this moment, groups of robots, holding guns, formed a defensive position to resist the invasion of the Zerg in front. A 5-meter-tall robot, holding a giant machine gun tightly, launched a sweep at the first group of mechanical insects in front. Bang 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 bang, the giant machine gun sprayed blue flames, and bullets flew towards the mechanical insects, accompanied by bursts of loud noises. Groups of mechanical insects were blown away by the falling and exploding bullets. Some mechanical insects were directly killed, and the mechas and the flesh inside were blown into several pieces, and the bodies inside overflowed with blue blood. There are tens of thousands of robots, each equipped with various guns and weapons, forming a unified front, resisting the tide of mechanical insects in front of them. Master, there are too many of them. We can't defend if we continue like this, a voice came from the side. Hearing this voice, Tiangang, the master of metal, heard this, and the red light in his pupils flashed. He turned his head slightly and looked at the soldiers who were fighting nearby. He retracted his sight and looked at the endless Zerg in front of him. He frowned and said, "Our front line is the last front line. Behind us is our base. If we continue to retreat, the base will be exposed. Once the base is broken, the metal civilization will be destroyed. Defend. Whether we can win or not, we must defend. Keep defending. Fight until the last person." Yes. Tiangang raised his huge hand, raised the giant laser weapon in his hand, and pointed it at the mechanical insect tied in front. Ah! He roared and pulled the trigger. A red laser shot directly at the insect tied in front. Mechanical insects died in groups. This laser can kill a lot of mechanical bugs, but the problem is that these mechanical bugs are completely endless. No matter how many are killed, new mechanical bugs will always appear behind to make up for them. The energy of the metal civilization is not endless. The insect tide is getting closer and closer. Tiangang said through the communication, "All metal people listen, change to close-range weapons." After the voice fell, all metal people abandoned the guns in their hands, and pulled out close-range weapons such as knives or swords from their waists or behind their backs. Flames sprayed out from behind them, and their bodies flew up and flew into the mechanical insect tide. Tiangang held a giant blade in one hand and a shield in the other. With a big hand, he swung and swept the knife, and the insects were cut into 2 pieces, and blue blood gushed out. These metal warriors rushed into the insect tide, and it was a completely one-sided massacre. At the same time, while this war was going on, a person composed of consciousness was standing aside, with his hands on his chest, watching this scene. This person was Chen Mu, who had nothing to do. Actually, it is not right to say that Chen Mu is idle and has nothing to do. Now the galaxy is still devouring the Andromeda galaxy, and he is gaining evolutionary energy, but this devouring process is too long. Faced with such a long-term task, Chen Mu naturally has free time. In his free time, he plans to see what the life he created is doing at the moment. Zerg, this is the civilization created by Angel Cheng. It seems that these bugs are not smart, but stupid. They seem to act completely on instinct. For millions of years, other civilizations can create shield silver to create their bodies. Why are all these bugs created by Angel Cheng so stupid? It is too disappointing that the Zerg civilization created by Angel Cheng took more than 3 million years to achieve this result. For Chen Mu, angels are equivalent to the workers created by Chen Mu, and Zerg civilization is the livestock cultivated by the workers. As the farm boss, Chen Mu still needs to take a look at what the livestock are cultivated by the workers. Good or bad, he is interested in knowing. When he saw that the livestock developed beyond his expectations, he would feel novel, and when he saw that they did not develop well, he would feel a little disappointed. Of course, this emotion was just a very small emotional fluctuation. Because, for Chen Mu at this moment, these livestock did not have much impact on him. These things were like mice in the laboratory. They could be used for experiments when they were alive, and they would be replaced at most when they died. That was all. No, Chen Mu found a clue based on his own information database. Chen Mu's information database covered the entire galaxy, and the information database of all life in the galaxy belonged to Chen Mu. Naturally, Chen Mu could browse the information database of Angel Cheng at will. Through Angel Cheng's information database, Chen Mu understood everything. When Cheng created the Zerg civilization, he added human genes to these insects, so that these insects had human IQ. With human IQ, the insects could evolve and create civilization. But later, Cheng discovered that the Zerg was the Zerg. The reproduction ability of these Zerg was really terrifying, and that kind of reproduction ability was far beyond the reach of other animals. However, the number of insects was increasing rapidly, but the resources were limited. For this reason, later on, the Zerg civilization began to frantically look for other civilizations to invade. The purpose of the invasion was mainly to die. There are too many insects. If there is no war to reduce the number of insects, the insects will start to kill each other for resources. Therefore, the kings of the Zerg can only choose to let the insects die. Since they are going to die, they can't get too advanced technological support. What Shenmue saw was that these endless tides of insects were actually cannon fodder sent by the Zerg civilization to die. Although these insects who die have human consciousness, they are born with the nature of unconditionally obeying the orders of beings higher than themselves, so they know they will die, but they still have no hesitation. But it is obvious that the king of the Zerg civilization overestimated this metal civilization. These Zerg are too weak, but no matter how weak they are, their number is really endless. Even if the tens of thousands of metal warriors led by Tiangang are very experienced in combat, they are facing these endless mechanical insects that have no idea what death is. As time goes by, deaths begin to appear. With screams, one metal warrior after another fell to the ground and was dismembered and eaten by the mechanical bugs. Fight! Fight! Tiangang used the communication to issue orders to the remaining metal warriors. Metal civilization is different from other civilizations. Metal civilization is all mechanical. If they want to continue civilization, they can only create new mechanical bodies through the original devices in the base. And that device is different from the energy cube created by Shenmue. That thing cannot be moved. In other words, once the base is broken and the original device is destroyed, it means that the metal civilization will be destroyed. This front is the last front. If this front collapses, the metal civilization will no longer exist. We can only fight. Looking at the metal civilization that is struggling to support, Shenmue thought that the Zerg civilization has not developed much, but now he finds that these bugs are just cannon fodder, and the civilization of the Andromeda Galaxy can't even kill these cannon fodder. Suddenly, Shenmue saw that the door of time and space was opened in the sky. Along with the appearance of a huge gate within time and space, one after another winged silver-armored warriors appeared in the sky. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 323. Shenmue looked at the life forms flying in the sky. The living beings had wings, but the wings covered their arms, which were completely different from the angels created by Shenmue. The angels created by Shenmue have wings that grow directly on their backs, separate from their shoulders, and the wings are all uniformly white. Because the angel's wing gene created by Shenmue was actually the original albatross wing, so it was white. But these life forms in front of me are different. Their wings are black, gray or white. Through their information database, Shenmue knew what they were. Winged civilization, the strongest civilization in the Andromeda Galaxy, is known as the dominant civilization in the Andromeda Galaxy. However, their technology does not seem to be powerful. The winged civilization believes in its own set of order. In the Andromeda Galaxy, they use their own order to stipulate that other civilizations must also abide by it. As long as you surrender to the winged civilization, you will become a subsidiary civilization of the winged civilization and you will also be protected by the winged civilization. The metal civilization is a subsidiary civilization of the winged civilization. Has a higher level civilization come to take care of your little brother? Shenmue muttered. There were more than 5,000 winged warriors from the Gate of Time and Space. When these warriors arrived, they immediately flapped their wings and jumped into the insect tide to help the metal civilization eliminate the insect tide. Who, accompanied by flames passing by. Hundreds of mechanical insects surrounding Tiangang, along with their mechas and bodies, were all reduced to ashes. Tiangang was startled for a moment, then came to his senses. He looked forward and saw a silver woman wearing silver armor and a red cloak. Tiangong's eyes lit up slightly and he said, "Lord, Lord." Hearing this voice, the woman turned her face slightly and glanced at Tiangang with her sapphire eyes. She retracted her gaze and said, "Let your people retreat, and we will help you clear the place." Tiangang was stunned and said, "There are a lot of these Zerg races." "A lot," the woman said, "it's just a bunch of bugs, so what if there are too many?" She stared at the oncoming insect swarm in front of her. She spread her wings and flew directly upwards, out of the atmosphere and into space. She held the silver sword in her hand and pointed the tip of the silver sword upward. A dazzling ball of light appeared above the sword tip. The ball of light was like a mini star, suspended above the tip of the sword, condensing crazily above it. When Chen Mu saw this scene, he subconsciously looked at the stars in the distance. Inside the distant star, a space-time gate appears, and the star's energy is being absorbed by the space-time gate. The other gate of time and space is located on the tip of the sharp silver sword, which is where the ball of light that Chen Mu sees now is. The silver sword is not just a sharper weapon, it also contains more advanced technology, and this technology can collect energy from stars and concentrate all of this energy on the tip of the sword. The ball of light had grown from the size of a little finger at first to a mini star with a diameter of 30 meters. Jane pointed the tip of the sharp silver sword at the metal star below. The mini star suddenly shot out and turned into a beam of light, directly hitting the place pointed by Jian. Under Tiangong's gaze, a dazzling beam of light fell from the sky like a meteor and directly hit the insect tied in front of him. Boom! Following a loud noise, all surrounding sounds disappeared. All he could see was white, and the ground was shaking violently. For a long time. Wait for the white light to dissipate. Tiangang looked forward again, and everything he saw shocked Tiangang. All the Zerg in front disappeared, leaving behind a huge ravine on the ground that was more than 30 meters wide, tens of thousands of meters long, and bottomless. Tiangang raised his face, only to see a beautiful figure flying down from the sky. Her expression was indifferent, and the red cloak behind her was fluttering. That figure was so elegant, proud, and full of majesty. This is the dominant civilization of the fairy galaxy, the queen of the feathered civilization, Jane. Jane landed in front of Tiangang. She turned her back to Tiangang, turned her face slightly, looked at Tiangang, and said, "In order to avoid hurting your warriors, I controlled the power. Do you still think there are many such bugs now?" Tiangang was immediately speechless. She withdrew her gaze and looked at the swarm of insects in the distance that continued to rush this way. She said calmly, "Let your people leave, don't get in the way." The corner of Tiangong's mouth twitched and he said, "I understand." With that said, Tiangang looked at the other metal warriors and said, "Retreat." "See this?" Chen Mu muttered in his heart, "A high-tech weapon of stellar energy. Compared with Pangu civilization, it is a bit behind, but it can still be used to clean up cannon fodder bugs. However, if this is the strongest attack of the highest civilization in the Andromeda galaxy, then this winged civilization is a little too behind. The Andromeda galaxy is considered an older galaxy in the local group of galaxies, older than the Milky Way. Everything has a lifespan. Stars have a lifespan. When a star's lifespan ends, it will expand and become a giant star, or a neutron star or a black hole. Black holes also have a lifespan. Galaxies naturally have a lifespan. Whether a galaxy is young or old can be seen with light. The brighter the light emitted by the galaxy, the younger the stars in the galaxy. Young stars also mean that the galaxy is also young. Because only young stars emit brighter light. Although the Andromeda galaxy is nearly twice the size of the Milky Way, its light is not as bright as the Milky Way, so it can be confirmed that the Andromeda galaxy is older than the Milky Way. The galaxy where Chen Mu is located is even younger, because this galaxy was created by Chen Mu, including the previous blue giant civilization, so this galaxy can be said to be super young. The Andromeda galaxy is very old. The civilization born in such an ancient galaxy is more backward than those civilizations of the blue giant? Why? Is it true that there are no more powerful civilizations in the Andromeda galaxy in such a long history? Maybe not. Just like the ancient civilizations that appeared on Earth in the past, we don't know about those ancient civilizations, but it doesn't mean that those civilizations don't exist. The fact that the winged civilization doesn't know that there are older civilizations in the Andromeda galaxy doesn't mean that there were no ancient civilizations in the Andromeda galaxy before. It is possible that those ancient civilizations have perished, or, those ancient civilizations have left this space and gone to other spaces. Four-dimensional space, or a higher dimensional space, Chenmu pondered. Forget it, Chenmu was too lazy to think about it, and his consciousness disappeared on the spot. These Zerg civilizations are just extra cannon fodder, sent to die, just like garbage. These garbage are cleaned up by the backward civilization of winged civilization, which can be regarded as making the best use of them. Chenmu is not interested in participating in these things. Suddenly, Queen Jian subconsciously looked at the place where Chenmu disappeared, and her sapphire-like eyes were full of doubts. "What's wrong with the queen?" Han's voice came from the side. Jane came back to her senses. She looked at the empty place again. She slowly retracted her sight, and said, "It's okay, clear the place, get rid of these insects. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first." Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 324. The Chenmu galaxy merged with the Andromeda galaxy. From the outside, both galaxies emit golden light. The central black hole in the middle of the Andromeda galaxy has been swallowed by the central black hole of the Chenmu galaxy. The celestial bodies that originally orbited the central black hole of the Andromeda galaxy began to orbit the central black hole of the Chenmu galaxy. The Andromeda galaxy is being assimilated by Chenmu little by little and becomes a part of Chenmu. Chenmu, who has nothing to do, wanders around the galaxy. Chenmu discovered that the civilization created by Lv and the others had already spread through the warp engine. The people of these 7 civilizations colonized the habitable planets in the galaxy. The life that remains in the blue giant planet is only a part of the life of these 7 civilizations. Most of the life has gone outside to develop. With the development of scientific and technological civilization, life will have more and more demand for resources. For this reason, before life can't leave the planet, they will fight and kill for the resources on the planet. When the life on the planet has the ability to navigate in space, they will begin to collect resources in the universe. First, they collect resources from the celestial bodies closest to them. When the resources in their own planetary system are not enough, they will leave the planetary system and go to other planetary systems to collect resources. After a long time of more than 3 million years, the 7 civilizations in the blue giant planetary system have long been unable to meet the resources in the blue giant planetary system, so they naturally began to spread. Now, these lives have spread to every corner of Chenmu's system. Chenmu also found that after those lives spread out, they will form new civilizations and new orders after years of evolution, and the technology they have has also made progress. Chenmu's consciousness appeared in a planetary system. In front of Chenmu, there is a planet that has been transformed and orbited by a planet. Inhabiting the planet is a group of humanoid lives with dragon horns. Obviously, the main god of these lives should be Qinglong. This planet is 10,000 light-years away from the blue giant, which means that these little guys should have come from the blue giant and then colonized this planet. There are many civilizations like this, and Chenmu has seen many. But this civilization attracted Chenmu's attention. Chenmu subconsciously looked at the star that the planet revolved around. That star was a yellow dwarf like the sun, but that yellow dwarf was completely different from the common yellow dwarf at this moment. This yellow dwarf had a metal shell on the outside. The entire yellow dwarf was wrapped in this metal shell. This was different from the way Chenmu had wrapped it on the blue giant. There were just rings on the blue giant, but this one was wrapped directly. Through his conscious vision, Chen Mu could see that in the middle of the metal shell, there were one supergiant storage crystal after another, and these crystals were storing the stellar energy emitted by the star. Next to the metal shell, there were one supergiant space battleship after another. This battleship was very huge, and its size was 1/3 of the moon. The space on the battleship's deck was very huge. This battleship looked to Chen Mu like an aircraft carrier flying in the air. In space, those spaceships flew by one, and some spaceships would land on the deck of the aircraft carrier battleship to replenish energy. Seeing this, Chen Mu couldn't help but cross his arms. Use the Dyson sphere device to collect the stellar energy of the yellow dwarf, and then set up energy replenishment points outside the yellow dwarf to replenish energy for other spacecraft. Chen Mu said, from this point of view, this stellar energy is now like the oil in the earth before. Chen Mu retracted his sight, and inadvertently, he saw another strange scene through his consciousness. This is. There are a total of 7 planets orbiting the yellow dwarf. Among these 7 planets, 6 are naturally formed planets. The place where the dragon civilization currently lives is located in the second natural planet. But there are not only 6 planets orbiting this star, but 7. One of them is an artificial planet. Generally speaking, artificial planets are convenient for people to live in, but avoid the orbits of other planets to avoid collisions. But the artificial planet that Chen Mu saw at this moment not only did not avoid the orbit, but was in the same orbit as another uninhabited natural planet. More importantly, at this moment, this artificial planet is approaching the natural planet along the orbit. Chen Mu was a little confused when he saw this scene. The artificial planet with pure metal structure is a circle larger than the natural planet. The difference is like the difference between a fist and a ping-pong ball. But even if it is larger, if the two planets collide, they will definitely be damaged. The dragon civilization built such an artificial planet just to play bumper cars with the natural planet. It should be impossible, Chen Mu muttered. He could completely look through the information database and look through the information database of those dragon people, so that he could know the reason, but Chen Mu did not do so, because that would be too boring. He wanted to see what would happen next. The speed of the artificial planet is faster than that of the natural planet. Because the two planets are in the same orbit, and the artificial planet has a faster speed, the artificial planet gradually approaches the natural planet. Under Chen Mu's gaze, the middle of the artificial planet suddenly opened, revealing a round door. It turned out that the middle of the artificial planet was empty, and there was no entity inside. The door was like a big mouth, and as it approached the natural planet, it directly swallowed the natural planet. After the natural planet was swallowed, countless giant pillars stretched out from the inside of the artificial planet, directly inserted into the surface of the natural planet, fixing the planet inside. At this time, the door slowly closed. It turned out that the thing that looked like an artificial planet was actually a hollow metal ball used to hold planets. Why did you make such a huge celestial device to wrap a planet? Chen Mu was a little confused. Wrapped in doubt, Chen Mu pulled his consciousness into the device. Chen Mu looked inside and found that the size of the planet inside the metal ball was shrinking, and the shrinking speed was very fast. The size of the natural planet was originally as big as Jupiter, but not long after, its size was reduced by 1/7. Inside the metal ball, there was a force coming from all directions, compressing the planet. The size of the planet was reduced at a speed visible to the naked eye. Suddenly, boom! The entire planet exploded. Chen Mu's conscious vision suddenly became bright. Chen Mu was slightly startled, and he looked at the planet intently. The interior of the planet was ignited. Not long after, the planet was completely ignited and turned into a mini-star. This mini-star was wrapped by the metal ball, illuminating the entire interior of the metal ball. After seeing this, Chen Mu's heart moved. Artificial star. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 325. Chen Mu finally understood. This thing created by the dragon civilization is not an artificial planet, but a tool for making artificial stars. The process of a planet transforming into a star is that when the mass of the planet exceeds a certain upper limit, its own gravity causes its body to compress, and the material is compressed internally, while the hydrogen element inside is subjected to increasing pressure and compression. The terrifying temperature produced below. Under the dual effects of pressure and terrifying temperature, the hydrogen in the planet will form a nuclear fusion reaction, giving people the feeling of a direct explosion. The hydrogen is ignited, and the terrifying heat generated after ignition will support the material again, so that the planet it became a star. This is a natural process, but only when planets become stars and have very large masses can such a reaction occur, and the planet just now is obviously not qualified. And that man-made giant celestial device, which is larger than Jupiter, can compress that planet. Through the power of man-made devices, the planet is forcibly given an environment and ignited into a real star. After becoming a star, you can contribute stellar energy to the dragon civilization. I can easily achieve this point with my control ability. However, I am very surprised that a gas giant planet as big as Jupiter has been artificially transformed into a star. Chen Mu looked at the life civilizations with dragon horns on the natural planet, and he murmured, as time goes by, civilization technology is progressing. First it was artificial satellites, and now it is artificial stars. If given more time, artificial black holes and the like can probably be achieved. Sure enough, what I said before is absolutely right. Life will evolve, and the uncertainty caused by the evolution of life allows life civilization to continue to develop, and technology will gradually become more powerful. If given time, these life civilizations can definitely bring surprises. You must know that all life in this galaxy belongs to Chen Mu, and their scientific and technological knowledge will also be synchronized to Chen Mu's information library when it appears. As they grow, Chen Mu also grows. Chen Mu no longer thought about it, and his consciousness returned to his body. Time passed by minute by minute. Chen Mu didn't count the time and didn't know how many years had passed. The entire fairy galaxy was integrated into Chen Mu's body. After devouring the Andromeda galaxy, Chen Mu opened his consciousness and looked at his local galaxy group. There are more than 50 galaxies in total in the local group. The largest of them are the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy, while the other galaxies are all small galaxies with relatively low mass and are far less bright than the Milky Way and the Andromeda galaxy. At this moment, what Chen Mu saw through his conscious vision were only some dim galaxies. The brightest one in the entire local galaxy group was Chen Mu. Chen Mu's body size was more than twice as big as before, and the halo he radiated was particularly bright. After Chen Mu looked at himself, he then looked at those small galaxies. Let's eat. Chen Mu locked onto a galaxy. Through control ability plus spatial operation ability, the galaxy was directly pulled in front of Chen Mu. Chen Mu rushed over. Swallow. That galaxy is relatively small, less than 1/3 of Chen Mu's mass. This galaxy has so few stars that they are all concentrated into the central black hole. Because the number is too small and too crowded. From a distance, this does not look like a galaxy at all, but like a huge star, with no spiral shape visible at all. It's so small. Forget it, it's better than nothing. The less mass the galaxy has, the less time it takes to engulf it. The more mass it takes, the more time it takes to devour it. In fact, it's about the same. Like a giant vacuum cleaner, Chen Mu began to harvest the galaxies in the local galaxy group. Of course, swallowing galaxies is different from swallowing celestial bodies in the past. Now in the past, celestial objects only took a little time to deal with, but the process of galaxies and galaxies devouring them was very long and boring. Chen Mu gradually lost track of time. It took him an unknown amount of time to swallow up all the galaxies in the local galaxy group. The local group is a group of galaxies, a loose group of galaxies that spans an area of 10 million light-years in diameter in the universe. In this area, there were originally more than 50 galaxies. But now those galaxies are gone, leaving only Chen-Mu. And Chen-Mu's size has become extremely large. There are no galaxies in this galaxy group. Go outside and take a look. Chen-Mu opened his consciousness. Now through devouring, Chen-Mu will gain evolutionary energy and his abilities will also increase. After devouring more than 50 galaxies, Chen-Mu's consciousness field has skyrocketed to a terrifying level. He widened his vision. When his field of vision widened, he felt something strange. Because when he widened his consciousness, he found that he could not see any other galaxies in the space outside his own galaxy group. Is there only one galaxy group in the universe? Chen-Mu frowned. He continues to expand his horizons of consciousness. As the horizons of consciousness continue to expand, the Chen-Mu galaxy, which was originally extremely huge, gradually became smaller in the field of view. However, Chen-Mu still couldn't see other galaxies. Chen-Mu felt a little uneasy. He continued to enlarge his consciousness. Everything he saw made Chen-Mu slightly stunned. He saw other galaxy clusters. Because Chen-Mu's consciousness was too wide, the galaxy cluster he saw at this moment was an irregular light cluster. The light cluster was emitting light, but this light cluster was hundreds of millions of light-years away from the local galaxy cluster. Chen-Mu's consciousness had become extremely huge, and he continued to enlarge it to the limit. At this moment, the diameter of Chen-Mu's consciousness spanned hundreds of millions of light-years. Chen-Mu saw a galaxy cluster. There were 11 galaxy clusters that he could see in his consciousness. These 11 galaxy clusters looked like one light cluster after another, filling Chen-Mu's consciousness. Because these galaxy clusters were too far away, when the consciousness was enlarged, the galaxy clusters looked very small. But Chen-Mu knew that there were dozens or hundreds of galaxies in that light cluster, and each galaxy had hundreds of billions of stars, and it was possible that many civilizations were born in it. But now in Chen-Mu's conscious vision, these light clusters are so small. The universe is vast. Chen-Mu originally thought that the Earth was just a grain of sand in the desert, but now it seems that the Earth is not even qualified to be a grain of sand. These galaxy clusters are the sand in this universe. It is probably difficult for the Earth to be a quark. Chen-Mu retracted his vision, and he was not in a hurry to devour first. He wanted to know how much time he had spent, so he planned to enter the galaxy first and see the situation of those civilizations first. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 326. Above the moon. Inside an artificial hot spring. A beautiful figure is soaking in the hot spring. The owner of this beautiful shadow is Lu Yi. Above the hot spring, there is a blonde girl wearing silver armor with tied hair. This is Green's assistant, Angel Kingxiu. Kingxiu said, the dragon civilization's god-making plan was successful. Liu Yi smiled and said, it's really good. With the development of technology, the technology these children have mastered is getting stronger and stronger. Kingxiu looked at the smiling Liu Yi, but she actually couldn't understand Liu Yi's thoughts. Kingxiu said, God, for every civilization in the galaxy, this word means an existence that cannot be surpassed. That's why those civilizations are so in awe of the gods. Through the awe of those people, we can live comfortably in this galaxy. With the entry of civilizations from other galaxies, it can be said that interstellar wars are happening everywhere in this galaxy within these 10,000 years. But no matter what the war is like, because God is invincible, those civilizations will avoid the moon. But now, With the development of science and technology, some civilizations have begun to study the abilities of gods and want to create gods through the power of science and technology. Many advanced civilizations have plans to create gods. For example, the dragon civilization's plan to create gods began to be prepared more than 1,000 years ago, and now, the plan to create gods has been successful. This means that the dragon civilization also has a godlike existence. In this case, it means that God will gradually become less threatening. I am worried that in the future, we will all be involved in the war. Having said this, King Xia paused, looked at Lu Yi, and said, Lord God, do we want to do something? Lu Yi caressed the surface of the hot spring and looked at the water flowing in the hot spring. The corners of her mouth raised slightly and she said, Your concerns are reasonable, but civilization needs to evolve and develop. I am happy to see them grow. If they can grow to the point where they can threaten us and provoke us, I wouldn't mind seeing how powerful their gods are. Speaking of this, Lu Yi smiled and said, I'm quite looking forward to it. King Xia was slightly startled, she looked at Lu Yi, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. Other side. Chen Mu's consciousness returned to the galaxy. He observes the civilizations in the galaxy through the vision of consciousness. Suddenly, he noticed a picture, and that picture caught his attention. In the dark sky, a silver-haired girl with dragon horns and silver scales was flying in the air. She had a pair of black gem-like eyes, and her eyes were staring into the void in front of her. She raised her hand, looked at her hand, and then looked at the void in front of her. She raised her hand again and faced the void in front of her. Under Chen Mu's gaze, matter suddenly began to appear in the previously empty void. These substances began to condense into clumps at an extremely fast speed. From the beginning it was the size of a fist and grew like crazy. Extremely crazy growth at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, the fist-sized sphere became the size of the moon. And this moon-sized sphere continues to grow larger. In just a few minutes, the sphere transformed into a sphere with a diameter of 10,000 kilometers. You know, the diameter of the Earth is only 12,000 kilometers. This girl created a planet in just a few minutes. After the planet was created, it was spinning slightly. The girl waved her hand, and the planet, which was about the same size as the Earth, was like a globe that had been moved by someone, spinning faster. The girl waved her hand again. The planet was suddenly torn apart under Chen Mu's gaze. It turned into pieces of gravel and filled the void. You can rub the planets with your hands according to your thoughts, and you can also control the rotation of the planets, and you can also move the planets directly according to your thoughts. This is simply control. Chen Mu was thinking. If I hadn't guessed, he should be someone from the dragon civilization. But I remember that my control ability is not shared with anyone in the dragon civilization. Suddenly, the girl seemed to feel something. She subconsciously looked towards Chen Mu and said, Who is there? Hearing this, Chen Mu looked at the girl. Did she find herself? Chen Mu used the information database ability and planned to take a look at her information database. Unable to read, the other party's information database has an information lock. Automatically cracking, crack successfully. The system's mechanical voice sounded in Chen Mu's mind. Information lock, that is to say, the dragon civilization has also begun to study the consciousness body and information database. The girl didn't know that her information database had been spied on. She stared at Chen Mu's position, frowned, and said, Come out. Chen Mu knew everything about the dragon horn girl, including her thoughts, through her information database. Chen Mu watched her through the vision of his conscious body. At the same time, Chen Mu was thinking. Thinking is an activity of consciousness. If the conscious body is relatively sensitive, it will sense it, but this kind of reaction is very slight. Normal people wouldn't care, but she did, so she wanted to try it to see if there was anyone. In other words, it is her sixth sense. At the same time, Chen Mu also learned the girl's name. Her name was Benjeo. It is the god that the dragon civilization is creating. Benjeo looked at Chen Mu's position and saw that no one came out. She looked around and muttered, "Is it an illusion?" She retracted her gaze and disappeared from the spot. Chen Mu looked at the place where Benjeo disappeared, and he crossed his arms. "It's really interesting." Through Benjeo's information database, Chen Mu knew what the ability similar to the control ability was. The dragon civilization created a device, which was spherical and as large as Jupiter, and looked like an artificial planet. All matter has gravity. As long as matter appears in space, the space will be concave, and the concave will produce gravitational waves. The human body itself also has gravity, but the gravity is much smaller than that of the Earth, so under the coverage of the Earth's gravitational waves, most humans don't know about this. The device as big as Jupiter also has terrifying gravity. In addition to these gravitational forces, the celestial device also has a collection of all the high technologies of the dragon civilization. Every cell in Benjeo's body is like a signal receiver, connected to the celestial device. When Benjeo wants to create a planet, she communicates with the celestial device, and the countless warp engines installed inside the celestial device will be turned on at the same time. The time and space gates opened by these warp engines will appear at various locations inside the galaxy. The gravitational waves of the celestial device itself pass through the time and space gates, absorb those substances, and then transmit all the acquired substances to the location marked by Benjeo through the time and space gates. In this way, the substances collected from various places in the galaxy will appear at the location specified by Benjeo and condense into a planet. This process is the phenomenon caused by the warp engine and the gravitational waves of the celestial device itself. Suddenly, Chen Mu had an inexplicable idea. My control ability, could it be that it is also the ability phenomenon produced by the warp engine and gravitational waves? Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 327. Of course, although Benjeo's ability is similar to control ability, but the gravity generated by the celestial device has an upper limit according to its mass. If Benjeo wants to attack something with a mass greater than that celestial device, it is impossible, because Benjeo's attack method depends entirely on the gravitational waves that the celestial device can generate. Compared with Chen Mu's current control ability, the gap is naturally a world of difference. Moreover, Chen Mu himself has the ability to adapt instantly, which can make gravitational waves invalid. The God-making plan is that those guys have seen the control ability used by Levi and others, and then use their own high technology to imitate and manufacture, so that a life has similar abilities. This is the God-making plan. Chen Mu crossed his arms. Before, in order to make it easier for workers to manage the growing farm, he shared the shared ability with Levi and others, so that they could hire workers themselves and give them abilities. At present, the so-called main gods are responsible for the 7 civilizations in the Blue Giant, and the other newly hired ones are called gods. The God-making plan is to imitate the ability of gods and create them. However, looking at the dragon civilization, it can be seen that imitation only imitates part of the ability, such as instant adaptability, which cannot be imitated yet. Moreover, for an existence like Chen Mu, to create a planet, it is from scratch, not collecting materials from the outside. Artificial creation of gods is still very different from an existence like Chen Mu. There is still a long way to go, Chen Mu muttered. However, these civilizations have also grown, first the information lock, and then the God-making plan. As a farmer, watching the cultivated lives thrive, he is very pleased. Very comfortable. Technology creates gods, this is quite interesting. Chen Mu is looking forward to it, looking forward to these civilizations to continue to bring him new things. Although artificial creation of gods is interesting at present, it is still too weak and too rough. Chen Mu's consciousness slowly dissipated and reintegrated into the galaxy consciousness. At the same time, in addition to the God-making plan of the dragon civilization, what about other civilizations? Green stood on the shore of the hot spring, wrapped in a bathrobe, and asked aloud. King Zio said, other civilizations are also creating gods, but only the dragon civilization has succeeded so far. Levi lifted the bathrobe behind her hair, she tidied her hair, with a gleam in her eyes, and said, technology creates gods, it's quite interesting, remember to study it, and then we will do it. King Zio was slightly startled, and she said, yes. Levi's mouth corners slightly raised, and said, it's the same sentence as before, whether to use it or not is one thing, but we must not lag behind those civilizations. Hearing this, King Zio said, yes. Levi and the others all have the ability to spy on other people's information databases, that is, no matter what the civilization in this galaxy has invented, as long as they want, they can obtain that knowledge, and then conduct research and cooperate with the knowledge base. The technology they obtain after research will only be superior to the original technology, and there is no backwardness. This is also the reason why Levi is not worried, because no matter how the civilization in the galaxy develops, the technology they invent will become her technology. There is one more thing King Zio said, the Zerg civilization has been fighting with the Set civilization in the Seyfert galaxy for more than 1,000 years. 5 colonies of the Zerg civilization have been destroyed. Should we help them? Levi heard this and said, Zerg civilization, where is Ching? She turned her head slightly and looked at King Zio. King Zio said, the Zerg god didn't intervene in this matter. Levi smiled and said, that doesn't matter. She retracted her gaze. After the Zerg civilization left the Blue Giant, it colonized crazily. After so many years, the number of planets colonized by them must be at least 7,000 or 8,000. She smiled and said, it's been more than 1,000 years, and only 5 have been destroyed. It's too few. It's estimated that the number of dead insects is not as fast as their reproduction. King Zio heard this, she hummed lightly and said, although the Zerg civilization can be regarded as a civilization, their actions are sometimes unacceptable. Levi said, when Ching created the Zerg, he combined the genes of insects and humans to create this kind of insect with advanced intelligence. It's just that there are still some big differences between insects and ordinary life, especially in reproduction. Levi said, the reproduction speed is too fast, and once the number is large, there is competition for resources, and these insects do not reject cannibalism. Killing and cannibalizing each other, even if there is wisdom, this kind of thing cannot be stopped. This kind of thing also happens in other civilizations, but in the Zerg civilization, this kind of thing is infinitely magnified. Killing and death are cruel, this is the Zerg civilization. Lve crossed her arms and smiled, the management of this Zerg civilization has been a headache for Ching for a long time. Ching Shiu said, that's right, we angels regard justice as our order, but those Zergs do not conform to our order at all. They prefer destruction and plunder, which feels very evil. As long as the gods who have carried out missions in the god realm have basically fought with the insects of the Zerg civilization, they feel that the Zerg civilization is too chaotic and disorderly. Lve hummed, she looked at Ching Shiu and said, Zerg civilization, is the current king still Queen Wu 11? King Zio said, yes. Since the birth of the Zerg civilization, their kings have been female, just like the queen among ants. Lu Yi said with great interest, now the entire galaxy is engaged in an arms race. Does Wu 11 have a plan to create a god? King Zio nodded slightly, yes, Wu 11 plans to use the material resources of an entire planet to compress these material resources into an extremely dense body to create a god. Huh, when Lu Yi heard this, she couldn't help but become interested. She smiled and said, interesting. Other side. Chen Mu discovered an interesting thing. Is this bug a little big? In front of Chen Mu, he saw a huge nest made of spider webs. Next to Chenmu, there is a planet, which is the insect star. On the periphery of the planet, there are 5 artificial satellites orbiting the insect star at relatively the same speed. Then, a huge spider web, supported by these 5 artificial satellites, created an oval nest made of spider silk with a diameter of 5,000 kilometers. The mouth of the nest opened, revealing a head with 8 eyes. It was a spider head. This giant spider was eating, and he didn't know what he was eating. The body length of this spider is estimated to be more than 3,000 kilometers, making it very large. Generally, bugs inside a planet are unlikely to grow so big, because the planet has gravity, and this gravity can directly crush the bug's body. Of course, that's under normal conditions. If the density of bugs is very high, the situation is different. Interesting. This is the first time I have seen such a big insect. Chenmu planned to play with it, and as he thought, a body was gradually constructed in the void. The giant spider seemed to realize something and stared at Chenmu's position. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 328. In front of that giant spider appears with a golden halo. A little bit of material quickly condensed and turned into white bones. The bones increased to form a skeleton. A head appeared inside the skull, and nerves sprouted from the head. The nerves slowly spread, and the main nerves grew along the back like tree roots. Red muscles slowly grow out. Muscles permeate the body. The pupils have also grown. Chenmu's consciousness was resurrected in this body, and he could see the changes in his body with his naked eyes. What the naked eye sees is somewhat similar to what the conscious field of vision sees, but the scope of the conscious field of vision is wider. The field of vision of the naked eye is limited. 90% of the stars we see in the night sky are no farther than 1,100 light-years away. In fact, the stars we see all over the sky are actually just a small part of a spiral arm in the Milky Way, a spiral galaxy. The range that the human eye can see is very, very small. After so many years, it is inevitable to feel a little strange when seeing the world with the naked eye again. Chenmu raised his face and looked at the giant spider in front of him. He was about to say something. Suddenly, the giant spider suddenly opened its mouth. Chenmu saw his eyes darken. The entire body was devoured by giant spiders. It was dark all around, entering the mouth of the giant spider. There is gravity coming. This is the gravity that comes with this giant spider. If Chenmu was just an ordinary person, he would be swallowed by the giant spider, and then due to the action of gravitational waves, he would fall directly into the giant spider's stomach bag and be melted by the stomach acid inside. Of course, Chenmu is not. He was suspended in the mouth of the giant spider and looked at the dark time around him with his naked eyes. He fell silent. I wanted to see what this thing was, but I didn't expect that this thing directly regarded itself as food. Never mind. Chenmu was too lazy to think about it. Chenmu's figure disappeared from the spot, and when he reappeared, he appeared outside the giant spider. There was no emotion in his eyes. He looked at the giant spider in front of him and muttered, "A bug is a bug." Chenmu's body grew larger at a speed visible to the naked eye. In the blink of an eye, his body grew larger than a planet. He stretched out his huge hand and opened his palm. The giant spider and its nest were located in his palm. He shook his hand. The nest, along with the giant spider, was crushed to pieces by hands. "It's really unpleasant," Chenmu muttered, and his whole body slowly disappeared, and he returned to his conscious body again. The nest has been twisted and twisted at this moment. The giant spider inside now only has a broken insect corpse. At the same time, inside the insect planet, Wuyan, are the celestial insects stable? There was a woman sitting on the throne in the Queen's Hall. This woman has 6 arms behind her. In addition to a pair of red phoenix eyes, There are also 3 pairs of small eyes on her forehead. Wearing black exoskeleton armor, she crossed her legs and sat on the throne. This person is none other than the queen of the Zerg civilization, Wu 11. Under the high steps, a man who also looked half human and half insect lowered his head respectfully. After hearing the queen's words, he said, "Stability." Wu 11 said, "Yes, giant celestial life forms are different from ordinary celestial bodies. To maintain such a huge life form requires a lot of thought. You have done a good job." Wuyan looked in awe and said slowly, "It is Wuyan's greatest honor to be recognized by Her Majesty the Queen." Yes, Wu 11 said, "According to the current progress, when will the god-making plan be realized?" This. Wuyan was a little uneasy. He said, "We are currently testing. If the celestial worm with a body length of 5,000 kilometers can survive, then we can further compress and transform the density of the celestial worm into due to our size. To achieve this step, we need to solve various problems. After solving those problems, we can obtain an ultra-high density body with terrifying gravitational waves. In this way, the god-making plan will be initially completed. It just takes time." Wu 11 frowned. "Does it take time? This queen has heard you say this many times. This is not what I want to hear. What I want to hear is success, the success of the god-making plan." Wuyan lowered his head. Wu 11 looked at Wuyan's expression, she sighed, shrugged, and said, "You don't know how serious the situation our Zerg civilization is facing now. That damn elf civilization has been watching covetously from the side, and outside, the Seth civilization has already wiped out 5 of our colonial stars. Damn it, if we could create a god, wouldn't these guys kneel down in front of me and call me queen?" Wu 11 said. There was a girl next to Wu 11. When the girl heard this, she whispered, "Queen, pay attention to your quality." Upon hearing this, Wu 11 said, Your quality. If the plan to create a god fails, I have no quality." The girl covered her face and looked speechless. She could only mutter depressedly in her heart. She said she wanted to change her quality. "You were the one who asked me to help remind you. You are the one who doesn't want the quality now. It's really hard for me." "Actually, we also have ways to deal with them now," Wuyan said suddenly. Upon hearing this, Wu 11 was startled and looked at Wuyan. "What?" She looked at Wuyan with interest. "What method?" Wuyan lowered his head and said, "Although the celestial worm cannot become a god, its body is made of healing silver and sharp silver. Healing silver has the temperature resistance of shield silver, and also has a strong self-healing ability. It cannot be killed by the attacks of Set civilization and Elf civilization. Sharp silver is the sharpest substance and can easily destroy all substances. The celestial worm has strong defensive and offensive capabilities. In addition to the gravitational waves it can generate, it can be said that it is a celestial weapon. As long as we introduce our warrior's consciousness into its body, we can get a super celestial weapon. The celestial worm is invincible. If the invincible celestial worm joins the battlefield, we can deal with both the Elf civilization and the Set civilization." "Oh," Wu 11's eyes lit up, "very good. Then find a warrior immediately and introduce the consciousness into it." "Yes," Wuyan responded. Just then, a 2-meter-tall bug walked in with 8 legs outside the door. After it came in, it looked at Wu 11 and said, "Report to the queen, the celestial bug is gone." Wu 11 was stunned. "Ah! How is it possible?" Wu Yen looked at the warrior bug and said, "That's the celestial bug. It has a huge body like a celestial body, and it also has He Yin and Li Yin. It's gone." The warrior bug said, "Yes." "How did it disappear?" Wu 11 was stunned. The warrior bug said, "The celestial bug was crushed." "Ah! You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 329. Impossible. Wuyan frowned. Wuxi also looked solemn. She looked at the warrior worm. Crush it, are you seeing it right? The celestial worm has an extremely huge body, which is more than 5,000 kilometers long. It is a huge monster, not a small worm. How can you crush it to death? The warrior worm said, I am not seeing it wrong. Wuxi narrowed her eyes. At this time, the girl next to her said, Queen, don't we have satellites? We can take a look at the images recorded by the satellite. Wuxi heard it and said, yes. As soon as she thought about it, a three-dimensional picture appeared in the hall. Through this three-dimensional map, you can see the three-dimensional picture of the entire blue giant star. Wuxi waved her hand. The picture was enlarged, and the field of vision focused on the giant nest near the insect star. What he saw was a giant nest that had been twisted, broken and messy, and he could also see the debris and blue blood of the celestial worm that had merged with the nest. This. Wuyan's pupils trembled slightly, he couldn't believe it. Healing silver is an artificial material made by combining shield silver and nanorobots. It can resist various temperatures and pressures, and has an extremely strong self-healing ability. As long as it does not die instantly, it can heal itself. But from the scene in front of us, it can be easily judged that the celestial worm has been directly crushed by someone, and it died instantly. But you have to know that it is a celestial worm, which cannot be destroyed even by planetary cannons using plasma compression. What kind of power can crush such a celestial worm like this? Wu 11 frowned, who the hell did this? She waved her hand. The picture was like a video, moving backwards. What Wu 11 just saw was a satellite live broadcast. The satellite will store what it shoots in the form of video. In other words, what happened before can also be watched back. As the three-dimensional video screen retreated, Wu 11 finally saw what happened outside the celestial body 5 minutes ago. A golden giant appeared outside the insect star. This giant exuded golden light all over his body, and his whole body was extremely huge. His figure was almost the same size as the insect star next to him. You have to know that the worm star is a real planet. This giant is as huge as a planet. Seeing this incomparably huge giant, Wu 11's eyes were wide open. Under the gaze of everyone in the queen's palace, the golden giant stretched out his huge hand and directly crushed the nest and the celestial worms inside into dregs. Wu 11 subconsciously looked at Wu Yin next to him. But Wu Yin opened his mouth slightly, his face full of disbelief. Wu 11 said, Wu Yin, in this galaxy, is there any civilization that can create such a huge planetary creature? Wu Yin came back to his senses, he looked at Wu 11, he shook his head and said, impossible, studying the creation of giant celestial creatures is part of our God-making plan. This kind of giant celestial creature requires a lot of scientific and technological support to achieve it. Under normal circumstances, when the mass of an object reaches a certain level, the gravitational waves emitted from the body will forcibly pull the object back and eventually turn it into a sphere, which can't become life at all. In addition, we still need more scientific and technological knowledge. As far as I know, there is no other civilization in the entire Chenmu galaxy that can create a celestial life with a body length of more than 5,000 kilometers like us. Wu 11 frowned and said, there is something wrong with your information. If you really say so, then what about that giant? Wu Yin was confused. He shook his head and said, I don't know either. Wu 11 frowned, what on earth is this guy, elf civilization? Set civilization. As she said, Wu 11 continued to pull back the video in front of her. Until later, she saw it. Seeing that from the void where there was nothing, a skeleton appeared, then muscles appeared, and then a normal-sized Chenmu appeared. When she saw this scene, Wu 11 frowned. Suddenly, Wu 11 saw Chen Mu being swallowed by the celestial worm. After that, Chen Mu's figure appeared again. The four people in the queen's palace saw the golden light. Watching the normal-sized Chen Mu, he grew wildly at a speed visible to the naked eye and turned into a planetary giant. When he saw the golden giant grow from nothing to something, as if it was rubbed out by someone, the queen's palace became silent. Especially Wuyan, his pupils were trembling and his mouth was wide open. The Zerg civilization's god-making plan is divided into 3 steps. The first step is to create a giant celestial life, which is extremely difficult because it requires superb scientific and technological support to achieve it. Just this first step took more than 1,000 years to create a satellite-level celestial life. That is, the celestial worm, and the manufacture of the celestial worm took the Zerg civilization more than 60 years to create it. It was a very difficult process. And now, this planetary giant in front of him, from nothing to something, only took less than 3 minutes. This is incomprehensible, a scene that no one on the field can understand, which completely exceeds their common sense. It's a god, Wuyan said, this guy is a god. Civilization can't achieve this level. Only a god, a real god, can do it? No, that's not right, Wu 11 said. Wu Yin looked at Wu 11. Wu 11 crossed her arms and said, as far as I know, the gods in the divine world can create planets, but I have never heard that they can create planetary life. Even the main god Qing, who created the ancestors of our Zerg civilization, has never created celestial life. But this is impossible, Wu Yin said, this is completely against the technology we know. No matter what technology it is impossible to create a planetary giant in such a short time. Wu Yin said, I can't understand it, I can't understand it. Unless. The girl standing next to Wu 11 suddenly spoke. Hearing this, Wu 11 looked at the girl and said, Wei Xiang, unless what? Wei Xiang heard it and said, unless he is a god higher than the main god. Wu 11's expression suddenly changed, and she said, it's it? Wei Xiang looked at Wu 11, it? Wu 11 looked at the golden giant in the satellite video. She said solemnly, the creator of the Lord God, a galaxy-level life form, the most supreme existence in this galaxy. 6,000 years ago, he transformed into a golden dragon, bit the Blackwing civilization and the planet together, and then disappeared. I didn't expect that he would come back 6,000 years later. After the voice fell, everyone was stunned. Wei Xiang's face was full of shock. She slowly adjusted her emotions and said, you mean, he is the main consciousness of the galaxy on which we depend for survival. Become a sea squirt larva and eat a brain first. Author, Chen Wunian. Chapter 330. Wei Xiang slowly adjusted her mood and said, all advanced civilizations in the Chenmu galaxy know that this entire galaxy is alive, a galaxy life form, but this knowledge has always been a legend to me. Hearing this, Wu 11 glanced at Wei Xiang and said, you are still young. The last time the consciousness of a life form in this galaxy appeared more than 6,000 years ago. At that time, you were not born yet, so you don't know. Normal. However, we know about this existence. We just need to remain in awe of it. Wu 11 sat on his chair and looked at the golden giant in the screen, it is the absolute master. No civilization in this galaxy can compete with it. For it, we are too small. Perhaps in its eyes, we are probably worse than a weed on the roadside. Wanting to destroy us is just a thought. It is detachment from our cognitive presence. We can't have any thoughts about it, just stay in awe. Listening to what Wu 11 said, Wei Xiang couldn't help but look at Wu 11. Wu 11, the queen of the Zerg civilization, embodies the high technology of the Zerg civilization that has been developed for millions of years. She is immortal and seems to be able to survive forever. Wu 11 is not afraid of anything. Even if the Zerg civilization is now facing the threat of the Elven civilization and the Set civilization, She is unhappy at most, but she does not have any fear. The civilization of the entire galaxy knows that there is a Zerg civilization in the galaxy, and the Zerg civilization has a queen named Wu 11, and Wu 11 is a crazy, terrifying, and cruel lunatic. There is no way that there is anything that can scare Wu 11. But now, Wei Xiang could clearly feel that Wu 11 was afraid. Wu 11 was afraid. Wu 11, who was not afraid of anything, was now afraid. Wei Xiang subconsciously raised her face and looked at the golden giant. Many advanced civilizations already know about the existence before them and know that this galaxy is a giant life. But none of those advanced civilizations dare to be disrespectful to this giant life form. No matter what kind of civilization it is, it must be in awe of this galaxy life form. It is absolute. Wu 11 looked at the golden giant and said slowly, before realizing its existence, all civilizations believed that even gods could use technology to transcend. And with the development of technology, it is indeed true that it tells us that God can be imitated and created. So, at that time, we believed that there was no absolutely invincible existence in this world. But after we realize its existence, we realize how small, how powerless, and how ridiculous we are. It is absolute, it is absolutely invincible, and it exists absolutely. There is no existence that can compare with it. Wu 11 said, I have personally seen it swallow up entire galaxies and destroy countless civilizations. I have also seen it recreate galaxies and give birth to countless civilizations. For it, erasing all civilization and life in a galaxy is just a matter of an instant. Wu 11's black eyes reflected the light of the golden giant, and there was only awe in her eyes. That kind of erasure includes the erasure of matter and information database. Eternal life is not worth mentioning. Wei Xiang was shocked. She never expected that the galaxy life form would be such a terrifying existence. Destroy galaxies, create galaxies. Wei Xiang muttered to herself subconsciously. She looked at Wu 11 in disbelief and said, what kind of power is this? Wu 11 said, the power beyond cognition is beyond what we can understand. Wu 11 said, anyway, just stay in awe of it. Yes, Wei Xiang responded, and she turned back to look at the golden giant. She never thought that such a thing existed in this world. At the same time, Chen Mu saw an interesting phenomenon. This is a natural planet. In this natural planet, there lives a group of humanoid life forms with blue skin and blue blood. This kind of blue blood life form has high intelligence. They have established civilization through their own wisdom. However, this civilization has not even entered the pre-nuclear era. There are no nuclear weapons in the civilization, and it belongs to the level of civilization before World War II. But these blue-blooded people are now being invaded by an advanced civilization that already possesses warp engines, and the intruders who invade the blue-blooded people are old faces. A group of bugs from the Zerg civilization. These bugs are 2 meters tall, wear mechas, and are cannon fodder bugs. But for such existences, even these cannon fodder level existences, to invade such a civilization in a non-nuclear era, it would definitely be a disaster for that civilization. However, someone stopped the invasion of Zerg civilization. They were a group of beings with white wings, holding sharp silver swords, and wearing silver armor. They were the angels of the angelic civilization. There were not many of these angels, only 1,000. But the cannon fodder team of the Zerg civilization has billions of them. The Zerg civilization and the angel civilization are fighting in the sky of this blue blood civilization. The corpses of the Zerg civilization fall from the sky all the time and fall on the land of the blue-blooded people. Those blue-blooded people could only raise their heads and look at the war coming from high in the sky. 1,000 angels fought against billions of Zerg civilizations, and these angels were not given abilities. They belonged to the angel civilization, but not to the gods of the divine world. Therefore, there were still angels that were torn into pieces by swarms of insects because of energy overdraft. Chen Mu watched the scene from the side, watching a handsome male angel being covered by swarms of insects and torn into pieces because of energy overdraft. He was immediately interested when he saw the blood falling from the sky. Zerg civilization is the civilization of Angel Ching, and Angel civilization is the civilization created by Angel Vi. Unexpectedly, these two civilizations would fight over a strange civilization. It can be seen that the angels are protecting those blue-blooded people. But why do they do this? Chen Mu didn't quite understand. Soon, 1,000 angels fought desperately. In the end, only the last one died. The last female angel looked around at the insects flapping their wings and surrounding her from all directions. She gritted her teeth, raised her hand, wiped the blue blood on her cheek, flapped her pure wings, and flew in the air. The sunlight fell on her, making her look very sacred. She held the sword in her right hand, spread her wings behind her, and pounced on the Zerg in front of her, shouting loudly, "Justice, eternal and immortal." However, the energy in her body had been used up. After killing a bug with a sword, the other bugs flew over directly. She was torn apart and devoured without energy support. Blood was dripping. Really? Justice, eternal and immortal. Chen Mu's consciousness fell on the ground of the planet. Puff. The sharp silver sword held by the angel fell to the ground and pierced the ground in front of Chen Mu. Chen Mu constructed his own body. He looked at the sharp silver sword, stretched out his hand, pulled out the sharp silver sword, and looked at the blue blood on the sharp silver sword. However, the insects lost the angel's blocking and fell from the sky. When the insects fell, they saw Chen Mu and pounced on him.